Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into our latest polling roundup here at the Gavin Partridge YouTube channel. So we are into general election week. We are just 3 days away from the UK general election held on Thursday, 4th of May. So we will be doing polling roundup videos every evening through Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, either polls, of course, to come on Wednesday. And then we will be at the general election and the polling will be all done and dusted, and it will be time for all of you to have your say about what you're going to do. So we are nearly at the end of the election campaign now, but we've got 3 epic polling roundups to do, and I should get on with your Monday night polling roundup in a second. Just say that if you've been enjoying the polling vlogs here on the channel, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much for doing that. The response has been phenomenal. I'm on the main homepage of the Gavin Partridge channel, my YouTube channel, and the last 2 videos have generated 5k and 4k views, 9,000 views for the last 2 videos. So thank you so much everybody for an overwhelming and unbelievable response. And you know, this isn't the end of the story, you know, it'll be the end of this particular election campaign on Thursday, but the polling roundups will continue through the next parliament up to what will probably be general election in 2028 or 2029. So, you know, don't think that this is the end of the polling videos at all. They will be still coming. Not on the same level, not every day or every other day as they have been, but certainly once a month polling roundups will be, you know, will be continuing in the next parliament as we chart, you know, the next parliament. Anyway, more about that when we've got past the general election. Let's have a look at the latest opinion polls. So we've got 3 to get through here on Wiki, and then we've had 2 polls that so far haven't been added to the page here at Wiki. But let's start off with Delta poll. This was released late on Sunday. We did indeed get a Delta poll for the Mail on Sunday, and they found that the Conservatives were on 21%, Labour were on 42%, Liberal Democrats were on 11%, SNP were on 3%. They also found that the Greens were on 4%, and they had Reform on 16%, an overall Labour lead over the Conservatives of 21% with Delta poll for the Mail on Sunday. Since then, we have had 2 more polls added. We have had More in Common and also JL Partners. So let's deal with the More in Common poll. First of all, they have the Conservatives on 24%, Labour on 39%, Liberal Democrats on 12%, SNP on 3%, Greens on 5%, Reform on 15%, and an overall Labour lead of 15% over the Conservatives, compared to the previous More in Common poll, which was just here for the news agents. The Conservatives are up 1 from 23 to 24%. Labour are down 1 from 40% to 39%. Liberal Democrats are up 1 from 11% to 12%. SNP unchanged on 3%. Greens unchanged on 5%. And Reform are up 1 on 15% to from 14% to 15%. And overall, the Labour lead is down from 17% in that poll to 15% now. And then we've had a JL Partners poll, which is completely up to date, 28th of June and the 1st of July, for The Rest is Politics, and they have found that the Conservatives are on 24%, again, similar to what More in Common was showing. Labour on 39%, now that's in line, More in Common as well. Liberal Democrats a little bit down, on 10%, SNP on 4%, excuse me, everybody. Greens on 5% and Reform on 16%. Again, an overall Labour lead over Conservatives of 15%. If we find the most recent JL Partners poll, which is just here, this one is an SRP poll, which I'm not sure what that is actually. That's not MRP, so that's another poll that's drilling down though into like the exact detail, you know, in the constituency basis, which had Labour with a 16% lead. The last sort of regular JL Partners poll was this one just here, I think, again for progressive politics, which have Conservatives on 25%. So Conservatives are down 1, Labour are down 2 on the latest JL Partners poll, 41 to 39. Liberal Democrats are down 1 from 11% to 10%. SNP are up 1 from 3% to 4%. Greens are unchanged on 5%, and Reform are up 1 from 15% to 16%. The overall Labour lead from 16% to 15% is down 1. Right, let's see if any more polls have been added while I've been talking. Okay, so Savanta has been added in for the Telegraph. Just here, I'm going to talk about that. Let's do this on Twitter, because actually I can show you the changes with that. So first of all, we're going to have Bill Wilton, which for some reason hasn't been added here, but it should have been by now. So I don't know why that's not been added. But anyway, Bill Wilton are showing that the Conservatives. Oh, hang on, I think it might have been added actually. I think Bill Wilton might be there. It's a pretty old poll though. From the 27th. Has that been added in? Did I just notice that? Yes, just here, Bill Wilton, just there. Let's do it on Twitter. So, they've got the Labour. They've got Labour on 42%, unchanged. Conservatives on 19% up 1. Reform on 18% down 1. Liberal Democrats on 11% down 1. Greens on 1% down 1. Scottish National Party on 3% unchanged, and others are on 2%. Overall Labour lead with Bill Wilton at 23%. That is a poll from the 26th to 27th of June. So a little bit out of date, that one. Not sure why it takes them so long to put that up. And then the Savanta poll has been released as well for the Telegraph. And they have the highest Conservative share and the lowest Labour lead in a month. So they've got Labour on 39%, which is up 1. Conservatives are on 24%, which is up 3 on the last Savanta poll. Reform are on 13%, which is down 1. Liberal Democrats on 1%, which is down 1. Greens on 4%, down 2. SNP on 3%, up 1. And others, still very high other score with Savanta. I'm not sure what's accounting for that, but they have others on at 7%. So sorry, everybody. So it's Labour up 1. Did I say Labour down 1? Labour up 1. Conservatives up 3. Reform down 1. Liberal Democrats down 1. Greens down 2. SNP up 1. And others on 7. Could we be starting to see the typical late squeeze from the two main parties on the smaller parties here? Could we be starting to see Labour and the Conservatives squeezing out like Reform and Liberal Democrats and the Greens? I wonder if we start to see a late surge for Labour, and particularly perhaps for the Conservatives. This might start with the Conservatives. It won't be enough to prevent Labour, Labour winning the election, but we might be starting to see first signs of the Conservatives begin to squeeze out, particularly perhaps that Reform vote a little bit, and starting to firm up, their core vote slightly, which might get them into the mid to upper 20s by polling day. We shall see. That's speculative. We'll need more polls, though, to confirm that. The overall polling graph is looking like this. So we are seeing an uptick in the Conservatives. Look at the Conservatives trend line there. Definitely ticking up from its nadir down here. Labour has started to drop again by the look of it. Their trend line dropping a little bit. But still, from Labour to the Conservative trend line, we're still maintaining a roughly 20% gap, maybe a little bit under 20% of upper teens, but still easily enough for Labour to get a huge majority. Reform's trend line is dropping slightly, so are we seeing that squeeze from Reform to the Conservatives? Are we beginning to see the Conservatives starting to squeeze that Reform vote a little bit? Liberal Democrats are sort of flat. The Greens are dropping slightly. You'd expect the Greens trend line to, if the Greens trend line going down, you expect that to tip the Labour trend line up. So although the Labour trend line does look as though it's still dropping, really, I would expect if this green trend line continues to fall, I would expect to see the Labour trend line lift up a little bit. And as far as the SNP is concerned, they look quite flat. down here. If we have a look at the graph just from when the election was called, that's how it's looking. So Labour, of course, dropped from mid 40s to about 40%, where they are maintained. The Conservatives were at the mid-20s, bearing below 20s. This trend line hasn't started moving yet, really, unlike the trend line that we saw a moment ago. And this trend line is flat as well, so that's the Reform side about 10%, into the upper teens now. Liberal Democrats did lift up a little bit from about sort of 8% to about 12%. They're still there. Greens and SNP looking quite flat. Right, so that's your Monday night polling roundup. Quite interesting. Are we, as I say, starting to see the two main parties, Labour and Conservatives, begin to squeeze out those smaller parties? Typically, you do get that in a general election. So, yeah, if the Greens are being squeezed, you would expect most of that to go to Labour. If Reform is being squeezed, you would expect some of that to go to the Conservatives. Some of it might go back to Labour as well in the red wall. So the two big parties might be starting to squeeze out those smaller parties, but we shall see, what the polls are showing when we do our next polling roundup, which I think is going to be tomorrow on Tuesday evening. So next instalment coming there. Despite all of the chopping and changing of the churn, the upshot is still though that Labour is on course for an absolutely massive majority. They're still maintaining that very large lead over Conservatives. If the Conservatives are lifting up a little bit, it might not be a 20% lead, it might be more like 17, 18%, but still easily enough for Labour to have a huge majority at the end of all of this. But anyway, next polling roundup will be tomorrow on Tuesday, so I'll see you same time, same place then, sometime about 8 p.m. But for this one, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon with more polls. That's all for now, though. Bye for now.